Hey guys, today we're back in the 2023 Acura Integra. This is a top trim A-spec with a tech package and the 6-speed manual transmission. We were just in a 2022 Honda Civic Si a couple weeks ago. I've spent a lot more time in this Integra than I did initially at the launch. Instead of a few hours, I've spent a few days in this car. So I wanted to give you guys some driving impressions and thoughts about what this Integra is like to live with, and compare it to the Civic Si, talk about kind of where it stacks up, its purpose in life, you know, all the good things that we do when we revisit a car after a launch. So first, let's just walk you around this. We'll show you what it looks like inside and out, then we'll take it for a drive and talk about this new Acura Integra. One thing that really stands out about this new Integra are the paint choices. This gray is really sharp. I love this metallic flake. Really enhances some of the lines on this car. Wheels look nice too. Kind of a controversial front end for this new Integra, but we do have the logo embossed here under this headlight like the classic Acura Integra. This is basically just a nicer Honda Civic Si. Same 1.5 liter turbo, makes about 200 horsepower. Same 6-speed manual transmission, but we see some refinements and improvements over the Si that I think are quite nice and some people will definitely appreciate. This Integra is a little bit longer, has a bit more cargo space. This is a liftback instead of the Si's sedan body form. This trunk space is pretty big and open, and of course you can fold down the rear seats for even more room. Gets pretty cavernous back there. A lot of space to put stuff. No spare tire in this Integra, but looks like you'd pull this out and put a spare tire in there if you wanted to. We just have an inflation repair kit and a couple cargo storage bins. One complaint that I do have about this is if you're loading bigger, heavier items, this height right here is kind of high up, so you really have to lift things up and over. It would be nice if this had a little bit lower of a load floor. Minor complaint, but otherwise a pretty spacious and usable liftback design. Of course, this also has the ELS Studio 3D surround sound system, a fantastic upgrade over the already really nice Bose audio system in the Civic Si. Let's put this key back in the car so it's not beeping at us. Back seats are comfy, spacious. We get a couple USB ports back here, nice looking cup holder. Only complaint is that we don't have any vents that give us air in the back. But plenty of other upgrades over the standard Civic Si. We have heated seats, adaptive suspension, a really pretty nice interior, some more leather, some more accents. We have a nice Alcantara suede insert on these seats, and just a nice looking space. You can get a couple different interior color options, and of course there's also the option for a CVT, a continuously variable transmission. For those who don't drive manual or don't necessarily want a manual, this Integra is a great option for those automatic enthusiast drivers. And the CVT is actually quite good. It's pretty responsive. It utilizes the power from this 1.5 turbo in some ways a little bit better than the manual does because it revs up instantly. It's pretty quick to do what you want it to do with your right foot. Take a quick peek at this engine. Still gets pretty impressive fuel economy. I've seen about 38 mpg this week in some combined driving. Between, I think, 36 to 40 mpg is a realistic expectation from this Integra. You can put regular fuel in this, though I believe premium recommended. Let's see what the gas cap says. And we also have 235 40 R18 Conti Pro Contact all-season tires. Not the best tire, if I'm being honest. Lacks a little bit of grip, but it is quieter and more comfortable than what is on the Civic Si. So you give up a little bit of performance, outright grip and traction for lower road noise, lower NVH, better ride quality. This is a softer, slightly heavier Civic Si, only about 100 pounds heavier. Do I feel it? Kind of, but not really. It's not a huge performance deficit, not a big deal. I think some of the pros here outweigh the cons. The Acura Integra has always been this slightly nicer Civic, and really there isn't a whole lot different here. We get wireless charging, wireless CarPlay, and Android Auto, similar reverse camera, infotainment, everything we see in the Civic, lots of safety systems. One change that I've noticed this week from the Civic Si is they've gotten rid of the little brightness toggle switch and put that in the infotainment there, which is kind of an interesting decision because Honda has all been about physical controls in this new Civic Si, Acura Integra, the new CR-V, the new HR-V. They all have these physical buttons, and it's really nice to use, but hiding that brightness control, especially for night or evening driving, is a little bit annoying. I wish I just had a little button right here to use. Fuel efficient, one of the best shifters in the business. 1.5 liter turbo has enough power. We also get the limited slip differential in this manual car. That does a nice job pulling us out of corners, and overall it's a pretty nice front-wheel drive car to drive. Not a lot of performance here, not a lot of speed and power, but it's enough and it's a satisfying driving experience. All of your inputs are really nice in this Acura Integra. We've walked you around this interior pretty in depth in the initial review. If you have any more questions or want to see any more on this, go check that video out. We posted it a couple months ago. I'll put a link in the description. But I think now let's go take this Integra for a drive and see how it does on the road and talk about what it's been like to live with this week. Parking brake automatically disables as soon as you start to let out the clutch. One thing I've noticed this week in comparison to the Civic Si is we have a little bit more of a louder, aggressive exhaust note from this Integra. It's very subtle, but it sounds kind of nice. A little bit of a different tone. We've got some burbles on the overrun. When you're just cruising around, you can hear it a little bit better. And the fact that this is a lift-back design and not a closed trunk helps with that too. You can hear that exhaust just a little bit more. Rev Matching works really well on this car. It's hidden deep in a few menus, so if you want to change from turning Rev Matching on to turn Rev Matching off or vice versa, you have to stop the car, put the handbrake on, and go into a couple menus and reset that setting. Unfortunately, there's not a quick access button for that. I hope Honda makes us one at some point. But this week, I have actually really enjoyed driving this car around. It's really comfortable. It's a lot quieter than the Civic Si. Rides a little bit better, actually quite a lot better. And I think it's just a nice choice for the more maybe grown-up enthusiast. Maybe you're cresting 30, you've got some more disposable income, you still want a more involved manual daily driver. You want something that's practical. You're not quite ready to go the full crossover route, but you want something that's a little bit nicer inside than the standard Civic Si, and maybe you don't want to be seen in a Civic anymore. Maybe you want to show up to work in something a little bit more svelte and sleek, and that's probably where this Integra comes in for a lot of people. There is not a lot of low-down torque from this 1.5 turbo, so getting a smooth start out of this car can be a little bit tricky every now and then. But if you drag the clutch a little bit and with a little bit of practice, it's not too bad. You can drive this car pretty smoothly most of the time. It is an engine that loves to rev. Let's put us into sport mode here. Power, Rev Hang, they all feel pretty much the same as the Civic Si. It's limit handling where we see some differences with this Integra. A little bit more lift off oversteer, a little bit more active at the limit, less grip, more body roll. But the trade-off is a little bit more ride comfort. If you live in an area like up in the Northeast or the snow belt, like we have here in Michigan, we have some pretty rough roads. The Civic Si gets a little bit stiff for daily use. This Integra is perfect. I have no issues about the ride quality in this car. It feels really, really good. Let's go back into individual mode. Rev Hang is minimal to non-existent under 5,000 RPM. So when you're just driving this around casually, it's a pretty natural and nice shifting experience. Even with rev matching on, you can give the engine just a little bit of a helping flip if you want to rev match your heel toe downshift. It's not the most eager rev matching system, so a little bit of a helping foot every now and then does make it a little bit more of a interesting driving experience. Let's go into normal mode. This is the mode that the car defaults at when you start it up. I found this week that the throttle response in normal mode is a little bit aggressive. That's kind of why I have everything set to comfort and individual. Just a little bit less throttle linearity in normal mode. You're going to accelerate away from those lights a little bit quicker than you think. It almost feels like a sport mode in terms of throttle tuning, which I guess is fine. Speaking of sport mode, let's try that out. Can we get this to rotate a little bit? Yeah, not bad, not bad. Continentals do complain quite a bit. They are noisy. Alright, driving assistance. Systems worked pretty well for me this week. A couple little hiccups with vehicles turning off into driveways or slowing down in a lane next to us, but for the most part, it seems to work pretty well, pretty much like the Honda Civic Si does. Stays pretty nicely centered between the lines. Really quite a bit less road noise and NVH in this Integra compared to the Civic Si. I like this little display here in the center. It shows you when you're passing a car. If it senses a larger truck ahead of you, it'll show you kind of an estimation of where the lanes are. It will also display whether you're braking or you have your turn signal on in this little Integra graphic down there, which I think is kind of cool. So right now we've got the brakes on. All three brake lights are lighting up in that little display. I like that. It gives me a little bit more confidence in the driving assistance system to see all of that realized visually. I'm not noticing that much of a difference in stiffness in sport mode. Maybe there's just a little bit less body roll. Inputs are still really nice in this Integra. I like the steering feel. Brake pedal's nice and firm. Aggressive throttle tuning in sport mode as well. You'll find yourself unintentionally peeling out a little bit here and there at stoplights. Alright, let's see how it handles this entrance ramp. Would like to see a slightly higher red line from this 1.5 turbo someday. 7,000 RPM would be nice. It just needs that extra little bit. 6,500 comes up pretty quickly. See the semi trucks up there on the little screen? That's kind of cool. This new Civic / Integra is just such a great car to live with on a daily basis. The head-up display is a nice addition there. It'll show your speed, cruise control settings, following distance, whether you have lane keep assist enabled or not, speed limit. And pretty awesome that Acura and Honda have developed these safety systems and driving assistance systems to work with a manual transmission. Not every manufacturer does that, and it's really well integrated. Of course, it has its limitations. You can't slow down all the way. You have to downshift, but the system will carry on no matter if you shift gears, upshift, downshift, which is pretty cool. Everything's easy to enable and disable with the steering wheel controls. I mean, same as the Civic, really. If we see a clear entrance ramp, let's try out. Let's try cornering an individual mode, which is basically just comfort. Let's see if we notice a difference at the limit with everything in full soft. Down into third. Gosh, I don't really notice that much of a difference. Diff still does a great job pulling us out of corners. The ride is super smooth. Even on these 18-inch wheels, it takes these rough roads like a champ. Could also just be placebo, but I feel like this shifter is a little bit smoother in this Integra than in the SI. Just a little bit more buttery. Has a great weight to it. I just love this transmission. It's so fun. This aluminum piece gets a little bit reflective on sunny days like we have today. Like, this is just burning my retinas right now. And I'm not a huge fan of the black plastic all around here. I wish Acura replaced that with something else. They have done that here. Maybe if they carried that material down here, that would be pretty ideal. Throttle tuning is perfect in comfort mode. I talked to Tedward a little bit because he recently had an Integra on loan, and of course he owns and daily drives a Civic Si. And driving them back to back, he said there were very few differences in Rev Hang and sound and feel. The cars felt virtually identical, just with a little bit different NVH levels and, of course, suspension tuning. But I've always kind of felt like maybe there's a little bit less Rev Hang in the Integra. I don't know. Again, could be placebo. They're very close. I think I've said just about everything that I did in my initial review. I haven't really changed my opinion that much after spending a few days with this. I think really what it comes down to is this the right car for you? I don't think this is a car for everybody. Some people are going to want more performance. You might want to hold out for a Civic Type R. You might want to go and grab an Elantra N if you want something a little bit, faster and higher performance and a little bit more of drama to the driving experience. It is a little bit pricey, especially in manual transmission form. This A-Spec with the tech package is a little bit on the expensive side, unfortunately, cresting about $37,000. So that is one negative here. For that price, it doesn't have the performance to really back it up. But a lot of other things come into play here. It's quite comfortable. It's pretty well optioned. There's some really nice features. The only thing I'm missing are cooled seats. It would be nice to have cooled, ventilated seats. The sound system, though, is really impressive. Class leading for a vehicle like this, definitely. We did some ELS sound system tests in our first video. Go check that out in the link. you're interested in hearing that again. Also, if you don't want a manual transmission, you're okay with a CVT, and you're willing to spend just a little bit more than a fully loaded Civic hatchback or sedan, this is a really solid option. I think the value comes into play with the base Integra and maybe even kind of the mid-trim around the mid-30s or so. And if you can get one of these at MSRP, pretty good deal, especially since Civic SIs are selling for 5 to 10 grand over MSRP, or at least listing. Don't buy a Civic for 10 grand over MSRP. That's not a good idea. So overall, not quite as good of a performer as the Civic Si. I do think some more aggressive, sticky, summer-oriented tires would solve a lot of that for you, and that's a pretty easy fix and change to make. But more comfortable, better features here, and I think Acura did a nice job with this. Again, this is not the Integra Type R. This is just the Integra. We'll probably see an Integra Type R someday, but we haven't even had the Civic Type R released yet. So I'm sure that'll be in the pipeline, if it is coming, in about a year or so, maybe even a little bit less. All right. Okay, guys. Well, that's going to be a wrap for our Integra video today. Just some more thoughts on this car after spending a few days with it. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid package. Again, if you're just looking for that slightly more mature driving experience, and you want something a little bit nicer than a Civic Si, it's a Civic Si dressed in a business casual outfit. We'll sum it up there. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Take care. A lot of really nice Acura bits in this Integra too. I think Acura did a good job blending in some of their switchgear and features, and the sound system is a real highlight in this car too.